Hey there all, this is Ampillion, and I thought I'd toss another video up there and see if I can't, break my record of, as of late, of getting more than one video up in a month. So, hey, I'm gonna post Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, which is one of those roguelike games which you may probably have played before. This particular model has a lot of different races and classes to play around with, and I kind of just, this particular video just kind of showed off two of the ones that I felt like would be pretty fun to show off and play. This summoner here is definitely one of my favorites, just for the fact that you can kind of, your entire class is based around summoning mobs of creatures to go attack the other mobs of creatures that occupy the dungeon. And you basically have, it's a pretty basic dungeon crawl scenario. You have an inventory system. You have to collect all the items that you're going to use along the way in the dungeon, and unfortunately none of those are identified or even really descriptive when you pick them up, especially the magic items and books and such. You just have to experiment most of the time and kind of figure out what's what. As you can see, those little creatures with the hearts on them were my summon creatures, and unfortunately for me, I didn't really get to show this off very well because I stepped on a trap and died, which can happen a lot of times with casters. So, unfortunately, I moved on to a second playthrough, which consisted of me picking a melee class, because I figured, hey, I might actually survive longer than a minute and a half and get to show off a few more features. But I would definitely check this out if you're interested in the dungeon crawl RPG type games. I originally started playing things like Angband back in like my 486, and I used to be pretty, I wouldn't say I was like, really good at it, but it was a fun game, and I ended up stumbling into some Let's Plays of things like NetHack, and I started trying that, and then I stumbled into this one. I said, yep, this is my favorite of the bunch, so I kind of wanted to show it off, and that's kind of why it's in the nostalgia pile. These old roguelikes have been around for a while, and haven't played this particular one for too terribly long, but it was one of those ones. It was probably my favorite setup as as far as the interface and the controls and such go. So I figured, hey, if I'm going to record any of these, it's going to be this one. At some future point, maybe I'll come back and show off some of the other classes and races, maybe go into detail with it, but this game you can probably kind of figure out a lot better just through playing it. I mean, it's not real too difficult, especially the melee classes. It is essentially kind of like Dwarf Fortress, in that a lot of it comes with just learning the hotkeys and figuring out where menus are and what you need to do in those menus. So once you figure that out, it's pretty easy going from there. I believe the goal of this particular game is to get to the bottom of the dungeon and retrieve the super cool magical item that some evil wizard has taken and bring it back out of the dungeon. Unfortunately, I've never been all that great at these games, and I've never really completed those goals, and so don't intend this to be some sort of playthrough for dungeon crawl and something that'll show you every little hint and secret. This is essentially just me showing off the this particular game, and hoping that other people might be interested enough to pick it up and give it a try themselves. This one in particular, the Berserker class, is actually pretty easy. It is essentially just a beat phase. You don't have to worry about magic items. In fact, Trog, who is the barbarian god or whatever, really hates magic items, so you have some special abilities to actually destroy and sacrifice those magic items for favor. So your goal essentially is to go around and just beat up everything you can and have fun with it. Like I said, the goal is to kind of, descend down in the dungeon, but it never hurts. In fact, it pays off to search around a lot more. So that way, because you do have to worry about things like food intake and your inventory space. So it is good to search through an entire floor and find items that you might need for lower levels. especially depending on what race and class you've picked. Spellcasters can take a lot more food to cast their spells or magic points or whatnot. So it does help to know your class and race and all that stuff, and you'll pick that up just from kind of playing through it. You'll figure it all out. There are some real good class combinations and with races in particular. I would definitely probably suggest things like if you're gonna start out, like play either just play a melee type guy like this, or the kobolds and spriggans, I believe, are real easy to feed. Kobolds, I think, can eat pretty much anything, and the spriggans, I believe, have a slow digestion skill or something like that that prevents them from going through their food too quickly, which is good. Which is good in a game where you have to hoard all your food items and your restoration objects as best you can. So this particular run through, I kind of just was putzing around and hoping I could, show as much as I could, until I ran into this room with the gnolls in it, and it's kind of how you die a lot of times. You run in and you see an enemy, and you're like, alright, cool, and then there's like 3 or 4 of that enemy, and they just mob you. So I kind of showed off the basic strategy of how to play the game early on. But this also does have a cool little inventory screen at the end that shows off all the items you had. I identified them for you, so you can kind of see all the cool loot you might have picked up. And that's about it for this video, so have a good one, folks.